SpongeGex here with a review on the third and final Mario Party game that was made for the N64, Mario Party 3. So while it carries the same 3D models and gameplay from the first two entries, it has a drastically different art style with everything looking like a paper cutout from a pop-up book or something. This game does not have the same composer from the first two games, which makes a lot of the music sound very different. It's not bad though, some of it is pretty good, but it's just feels so tonally different from the first two games. And most of the characters have brand new voice lines, or even completely different voice actors, with no recycled voice clips from the first game, aside from a few characters like Yoshi, DK, Bowser, Baby Bowser, Toad, and the NPCs. Charles Martinet took over as the voice of Luigi, although he does give Luigi a more nasally voice than the one he would regularly give Luigi in later games. And Princess Peach finally got her most iconic voice by Jen Taylor. So Jen Taylor may not be the current or longest running voice of Princess Peach. She started in the late 90s with her first game being Mario Golf on the N64, and she resigned from the role in 2007, while many later games did recycle a few of her voice clips here and then. So Jen gave Peach her more gentle and sweet speaking voice, which her current voice actress captures perfectly with her own take on the character. Jen Taylor went on to voice other notable characters in video games, especially Cortana from the Halo franchise. While Jen did give Peach her defining voice, she unfortunately ruined Toad's voice as well. For the Mario Party series, her voice as Toad wasn't used until Mario Party 4, but she did first voice Toad in both Mario Golf and Mario Tennis on the N64. And at the time, she gave Toad a cute voice. It was definitely a little more higher pitched than the voice you heard in Mario Kart or Mario Party. However, over the years, Toad got a lot louder, more higher pitched, and his voice just got way more gravelly. It sounds like someone's like just shouting with a really sore throat. It's like he's drowning in his own mucus as he shouts. I honestly cannot stand the modern direction that Toad's voice went in, and I wish they'd go back to how it sounded in the Mario Party trilogy. Originally released in Japan in 2000, the same year that Mario Party 2 finally released in North America, oddly enough. And North America didn't get Mario Party 3 until 2001, during the N64's last year of operation. It's the first entry to introduce two new playable characters, who ended up becoming mainstays for nearly every Mario spin-off and sport game to follow, with the return of Princess Daisy and Waluigi. Both of these characters were made playable for the first time ever in a recently released game at the time, and that was Mario Tennis on N64. Princess Daisy felt like a brand new character for many, but she was actually introduced as early as 1989, over a decade before Mario Tennis even released in Japan, for she was another princess that Mario had to save on his Game Boy debut, Super Mario Land. Princess Daisy was reintroduced and made playable for the first time in Mario Tennis. For Nintendo were brainstorming for default partners for each character on the game, for doubles matches in tennis, and they thought a second princess from a past game would be the best partner for Princess Peach. Similarly for Wario, but they couldn't find a character from their past catalog to be a perfect fit for Wario. They nearly considered making an ugly doppelganger of Princess Peach named Wa-Peach, but the idea was rejected in favor of a Luigi doppelganger named Waluigi. Both characters made great additions to the party, with Daisy finally being another female character, no longer making Peach the only girl to play as. So sisters no longer had to fight over who gets to be the princess. Now they both can be a princess, but they still may have to fight over which princess they like better. Meanwhile, Waluigi complements characters like Mario, Luigi, and Wario perfectly. It's especially suitable for if you're playing a 4-player match, with all the characters wearing their hats, their mustaches, and overalls, and it makes for quite a colorful roster. While Waluigi never really changed throughout the years since his debut in Mario Tennis, Daisy was drastically different in the early days. In Mario Tennis, she looked nearly identical to Princess Peach, almost like she's a sister of her, except she had a short yellow dress, dark brown hair, and a red crown, with a flower brooch and earrings, along with tan skin. It wasn't until Mario Party 3 where we saw her in her regular royal attire, mostly being the same as what was shown in Tennis, but made to be a longer, poofier yellow dress, similar to Princess Peach's iconic pink dress. Daisy was originally voiced by Jen Taylor as well, giving Daisy a very sweet and soft-spoken voice, similarly to Princess Peach, but a little spunkier. Mario Party 4 and 5 reused the same voice clips from Daisy as used in Mario Party 3. However, in the GameCube era, Daisy was given a haircut. She now has much shorter hair than she did before, and her hair is now a less darker shade of brown, and they made her tan skin a lot more pale, which annoyed many players who noticed the whitewashing. In much later, more recent Mario games, it looks like they're trying to revert Daisy back to her original tan color, which made a lot of fans happy, especially those who felt represented by her skin color. So then came Mario Golf Toadstool Tour, where Daisy got a sudden rehaul out of nowhere, which left many who were recently reintroduced to Daisy on the N64 to be very puzzled. Daisy is now wearing orange shorts instead of a yellow skirt like Princess Peach, and she's suddenly louder and more in your face.
Hi, I'm Daisy!
A lot of people love Deanne Mustard's voice as Daisy, but I personally found it kind of annoying. It was just a little too much for me, honestly. I honestly preferred her sweeter sounding voice in the original games on N64. Deanne Mustard recently retired from the role in 2023. She got a replacement voice actor who does a spot-on impression of Daisy's longest running voice actress. So while I was never the biggest fan of Daisy's louder and crazier overhaul introduced in Mario Golf Toadstool Tour, I understand why Nintendo did it though. Nintendo likely knows that Daisy was basically a Peach clone. She looked very similar to Peach, just with a different color scheme. She shared the exact same voice actress, so they obviously changed her to give her more of a personality so she doesn't just feel like a clone of Peach. At least fans of Waluigi never had to worry about drastic changes to his character. If people loved Waluigi for who he was to begin with, they had nothing to worry about with his future, because he stayed the same. He's still Wario's partner in crime, just like before, and many fans loved him for that, and they still do, and it's just too bad that Waluigi gets horribly neglected in many games compared to Princess Daisy. There once was a time where Princess Daisy fans were complaining that she wasn't getting enough attention, and boy is it the opposite. She's in nearly every game now. She's even appeared in Super Mario Wonder. You know, it's really rare to get other characters aside from Mario and Luigi playable in those kind of games, with Peach and Rosalina being the only exceptions in past games, like in Super Mario 3D World. Waluigi has been excluded from rosters in quite a number of games, including Mario Kart 7, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Super Mario Run, and Super Mario Wonder, while Daisy was playable in all 4 of those games listed. Waluigi never even got to be in a game where he could be partnered with his best friend Wario, and he never even appeared in one of Wario's spin-offs, including Wario Land and WarioWare, and there's just not enough known about this character, which led fans that want to create like their own theories and stuff like that. Like, I know when I was first introduced to Waluigi, I and many others thought he was Wario's brother, but then Nintendo had to turn it down, saying that he is not Wario's brother. And so fans speculate, okay, he's his cousin then. And then Nintendo had to clarify, Waluigi is not even related to Wario. And it's like, why, Nintendo? Why are you ruining our fun? It's bad enough that they don't do anything with the character, but they can't even bother giving him a bit of a backstory. It's sad how, like, the only Mario character who really has, like, a plausible backstory is Rosalina from Mario Galaxy, and Nintendo, for some reason, is too afraid to expand their characters, and that's always disappointing. It came to a point where I was shocked that they actually shed a little bit of Peach's backstory in the Mario Brothers movie, but many fans think Waluigi deserves a lot better. Daisy fans begged Nintendo for years to do better with Daisy, and they finally listened, yet Nintendo still chooses to give Waluigi fans nothing, and it's honestly pretty depressing. Mario Party 3 carries over a lot from the first 2 games, but it also removes a lot. This is the first entry to have a file select, so you have 3 file options to save your data on, and it has a story mode. The story opens up with something called the Millennium Star as it falls from the sky, and our heroes fight over who gets to claim it. Suddenly, the star becomes sentient, and a magical dice block creature named Tumble, who looks just like Toad, but with instead of a mushroom head, he has a dice block for a head. And so, he abducts our heroes and traps them into a toy box that turns their entire world into a pop-up book art style, because the programmers were too lazy to make more 3D assets, I guess, and this was their excuse. And we're forced to compete for 7 star stamps to prove that we are worthy of the Millennium Star, so we can earn the title of the greatest superstar in the universe. Right away, this story is a whole bunch of random nonsense. The first 2 games had very simple stories, nothing to write home about, but they were charming in how simple they were, and they served their purpose in the gameplay. Mario Party 3 is trying so hard to tell a bigger story, but it comes across as a crazy and unfocused mess. What is the point of the giant toy box? Why do we have a paper cutout art style? It would have made more sense for Tumble to just trap us in a giant magical book instead. There's also the glaring issue I noticed in the narrative. They claim that the Millennium Star fell from the sky for it was a baby and couldn't keep itself up. Then why is the Millennium Star clearly elderly looking and sounding? And that's actually a detail you might want to keep in mind, because it kinda comes back with this game's so-called attempt at a twist. So, I've mentioned in the reviews for the first two games how the single-player minigame modes were a terrible idea, for it was expecting players to 100% complete the game by beating all the minigames with a limited amount of lives. A lot of these minigames take dumb luck to win. Not to mention how overpowered a lot of the CPU are, which don't really give human players, kids especially, a chance to compete fairly. So Mario Party 3 got rid of those pesky modes luckily, but it substituted it for something that's arguably much worse when you really think about it. Now they want us to go through all 6 of the brand new board maps and win them all to progress through the story, along with ranking how well we beat them. So it'll judge us from like a ranking of F to S rank. And so you don't have to get like an S rank to win, but it's like if you're dead set on 100% completing this game, if you want like the best score possible, that means that you might have to restart story mode multiple times just so you can get an S rank on one level you might have failed at. That is harsh. And so this wouldn't be a problem if each board map didn't take about an hour to complete, and if the game didn't mostly rely on dumb luck, where just one roll of the dice can screw you over no matter how close you are to first place. So, not to mention how on top of those 6 levels, there's an additional 6 levels that we got to complete. They are in the form of a new board game mode called the Duel Mode, which adds a bit of a strategic RPG auto battle mix to the board maps. Duel Mode sounds like a great idea, but in execution, it's really flawed and very frustrating, more than anything. So after we beat one board map, we are nearly granted a stamp to progress, until one of the other characters throws a whiny fit over how unfair it is, and they feel like they deserve the stamp more, and so the hosts allow it, and we're forced to duel that whiner in a game, because apparently that's how life works. Apparently when someone whines about something, they're supposed to be granted a chance to get what they want. Yeah, it sucks, I know. The cycle repeats itself. Meanwhile, throughout the game, they try and make it seem like Bowser will have some kind of antagonist role, but it's all for comic relief, and it has no good payoff in the end. But I will admit, the one scene where Daisy is not going to put up with Bowser's nonsense, as she one-hit KO smacks him clear into orbit, that gave me the biggest laugh out of this entire game. I do find it weird how the Millennium Star only lusts after Daisy, though. He has no reactions when looking at Peach whatsoever. Surely if he finds someone like Daisy attractive, he'd find Peach equally as attractive, if not more attractive. So this horny old star just hates blondes or the color pink, I guess, or something. And so, speaking of which, sadly, Daisy and Waluigi are not playable in story mode. They're not even unlockable for story mode, and can only be played in party mode for single or multiplayer. Daisy and Waluigi are treated as the bosses for the final 2 levels in story mode, in which we must compete with Daisy in a duel for the beauty stamp, but Waluigi steals the final mischief stamp and forces us to beat him in the final map, Waluigi's Island, if we want it back. So after finally getting all the stamps, the Millennium Star says that we have one last challenge, and that is to beat him in a duel, as we play the first boss fight minigame in the Mario Party series. Upon defeating him, we get the lame and underwhelming twist ending that the Millennium Star cannot grant us the title of greatest superstar in the universe, for he confesses that he's not the real Millennium Star and does not have the power to do that, and he flees like a coward. Suddenly, Tumble's dice hat opens up, revealing the real Millennium Star, just being a lazy, untextured power star, but with a rainbow glow around it, and it declares us to be the superstar of the universe. The world returns to normal, and Tumble and the star vanish as the credits roll. It's honestly the weakest and most underwhelming Mario Party story out of the N64 trilogy. No one really goes into these games for stories in the first place, but that's what kind of made the first 2 stories so much fun, presentation-wise. They didn't have to make the opening cutscenes or ending ceremonies, have these fun cinematics that tie everything together, but they did anyways, and they made it fun for kids who played it, and while fitting well into the settings of these games. In Mario Party 3, the board maps have no stories to tell, no unique openings or happy ending ceremonies, and not to mention how most of the cutscenes are just focused in story mode, like after the levels have been played, and so they're all basically the same thing, just characters lazily standing in front of Peach's castle, with the same repetitive scenarios each time, where we nearly get a stamp only for another character to complain and our progress gets delayed, and then meanwhile Bowser tries confronting us but we ignore him or he's too late or something. So same thing happens over and over until it finally reaches its conclusion. So on top of that, this game has a lot less to see and do compared to the first two games. The first two games had all of these different menus that led to different modes and features, like the minigame stadiums, the minigame island or coaster, the shops and such. The first two games collected our coins and stars and allowed us to spend them on unlockables for the game. But Mario Party 3 does not save any of our coins or stars, so we can't unlock anything with them. Unlike the first two games where we have to unlock the minigames by buying them with coins, Mario Party 3 just requires us to have to randomly play the minigames one time and then it's unlocked. So, and that's also carried over into every Mario Party sequel since. It does admittedly save a lot of time, preventing us from having to grind on coins to, which sometimes can take way too long to get, and having to spend them one by one to get all these minigames. It is a lot simpler and easier, admittedly, but it does feel like it wipes out a lot of replay value in the process. There are 3 rare minigames that must be unlocked by other methods, and I'll go into those later when I talk about the minigames themselves. The only real reward you get aside from that is after beating the story mode with one character. That character's face gets carved into a Mount Rushmore parody that is located behind Peach's castle at the main menu. And getting all of them up there does absolutely nothing. So it's still crazy that the developers, they expect us to go through the story mode 6 times altogether to 100% complete this game. It takes over 6 hours to beat just one story mode, and that's if you're lucky enough to not lose a single match. And trust me, that's really hard to pull off. So I gave Mario Party 2 a hard time for its minigame coaster mode being the worst single player challenge in the series history. I honestly take it back. It still sucks, don't get me wrong, but Mario Party 3 honestly did it worse. At least the minigame coaster can be beaten within 2 hours if you're lucky enough, especially with save states on the Switch version. But over 60 hours of gameplay to beat a story mode 6 times in one game is more ridiculous. The modes in this game include Battle Royale mode, which is basically just a different name for the party mode with the same board game gameplay from the first 2 party games. Duel mode leads us to the 6 duel boards, and minigame mode leads us to a library where we can freely play the minigames that we unlocked. There's also 2 extra doors, one which leads to a minigame tournament mode. It's just like the tournament modes, like the duel mode or battle mode inside of the minigame stadium in Mario Party 2, although the trial mode does not return, so you do not get like that exclusive board map that excludes the stars and hazards and only focuses on the red and blue spaces along with the minigames. That feature is sadly scrapped. And then there's the worst room in the game, Game Guy's room. I think I speak for most when I say that Game Guy is the worst aspect of Mario Party 3. So he's a game show host that wears a bow tie, he's a shy guy, and he has these spaces littered across the Battle Royale and duel modes, and he forces us to wager all of our coins for a very low chance of doubling or nothing our winnings in one of 4 dumb luck-based minigames that all feature gambling. Not only are these minigames not suitable for a family-friendly game, but they're not at all fun and can really contribute to being a major reason why you might end up not getting first place in a board map. If playing on the Switch, I will not blame you if you resort to using save states when some of these get triggered, but it'll only come in handy during 2 minigames, which are Magic Box and Sweet Surprise. But the save states won't help you for the other 2 minigames, for they are totally rigged with very low chances of you winning. It's bad enough that these minigames are littered across the board maps, but to make matters worse, in order to 100% complete this game, we need to earn 1,000 coins total in Game Guy's room. Game Guy's room is located in the minigame mode, where Game Guy has us play through a series of gambling minigames in a row. He randomly selects them, and we have to wager between 1 to 100 coins at a time. Luckily, we don't have to place the wager until the minigame is selected. So the quickest and easiest way to get 1,000 coins on the Switch version is to only gamble 1 coin at a time if you get like the Roulette or Lucky 7 minigame. But then if it's set to Sweet Surprise, just wager the most you can at a time. You can only wager up to 100 if you have at least 100 in your deck. But so you create a save state before picking one of the chain chomps that you bet on. And if your pick fails, just reload the save and try again until you win. And it's especially easier if you get the minigame Magic Box, where you have a chance at tripling your prize money. So again, just create a save state before opening a box, and if you find Toad, You choose to keep it, create another save state, and go on to try increasing your winnings. And if you get Baby Bowser, reload it and try the other box. It's that simple. So just keep doing that until you triple your reward, and that is the quickest and easiest way of getting 1,000 coins in this. Game Guy is single-handedly the worst decision ever made in a Mario Party series. The players can rejoice that he and his awful minigames were never seen again, but too bad we still have many dumb luck minigames to worry about in future entries. And so Peach's Castle just serves as this game's data, options, and sound test mode, so it leaves this to be one of the most emptiest hub worlds out of any of the Mario Party games. I mean, come on, Peach's Castle is the hub. There's so much they could have done with that, and it's just so underwhelming in the process. I do find it interesting how this is the first, and at the time, the only Mario Party game on N64 that had Peach's Castle featured. I mean, who doesn't love it when Peach's Castle's ever brought back, especially when it's the one that resembles the one we grew up with in Mario 64. The Battle Royale mode plays very similarly to the one in Mario Party 2 and 1, but it has some new additions, revisions, and even removals to change things up. The game's pause options can now save the options to save after every minigame, and we can now speed up the player's movement speed on the board map to speed up the gameplay, along with skipping single-player minigames that the CPU players trigger. So yeah, it's another welcoming addition, allowing the game to be sped up, to have players do less waiting on CPU. That's a great feature. Most spaces from the previous games return, but with some differences. The most notable difference is that the spaces are no longer round, but are now shaped like octagons. It's just a stylistic change. It's nothing too drastic. It doesn't ruin anything unless you can't stand that shape for some reason. But the battle spaces now have a Goomba's face on them instead of a lightning bolt. The item spaces no longer have a treasure chest on them and now have Toad's face on them. The item system was greatly improved in this game. Not only can we hold up to 3 items at once, but we can even discard unwanted skeleton keys. We are only allowed to use 1 item per turn though. Item spaces trigger one of 2 options, either an item minigame or an item quiz. Unlike Mario Party 2 where each board map had its own unique item game, Mario Party 3 has a roulette to select one of a variety of item minigames to play. Sadly, all of them are worse than the ones that were featured in Mario Party 2, and most are likely to have you fail instead of actually winning a prize, because a lot of them are horribly luck-based with not the best controls or gameplay. If an item quiz occurs, Toad or Baby Bowser will ask us a personal question, like are we a picky eater, yes or no, and they will either reward us or leave us with nothing based on our answers. Messing with save states really proves that these questions are useless, and no matter what we choose, the results are randomly picked every time. So there's like one time where you select an answer and Toad is disappointed with your answer and decides you deserve nothing. Other times you reload the save state and click the exact same answer and Toad will reward you with 3 prizes instead. So I just pick whichever comes first, or create save states and keep loading them until I get something that can actually help me stay on top. But please, do not use save states if you're playing with other players. Only use this to exploit for story mode. Don't do it if you're playing for fun with friends. Item stores are more spread out and plentiful in this game, with more items to choose from, along with most of the items being 5 coins cheaper than they were in Mario Party 2. All of the items from Mario Party 2 return, along with a lot of new introductions, including the reverse shroom, which you can cast on another player or even yourself to move backwards on a dice roll. Useful to try delaying players who are a few spaces away from collecting a star, or you can use it on yourself in rare cases where the next star spawns right behind you or right underneath you. So just use the reverse shroom on your current turn to try moving backwards, and then just roll a normal dice the following turn and hopefully you'll get the star then. Poison shrooms function similarly, except they reduce the dice rolls and restrict it to a 1-to-3 ratio. We got these 2 phone items, including the Mushroom and Bowser phones. The Mushroom phone allows us to call Toad's shop and order an item for delivery, while Bowser's phone allows us to anger Bowser with a prank phone call and pretend to be another player, as Bowser will angrily warp over to the victim, spin his punishment wheel to torture them. It's a pretty funny item. There's a new item called the Lucky Lamp, where unlike the Magic Lamp, which would grant you transportation to buy a star, this time it will let you summon a magic fairy who scares away the current location of the star, causing it to respawn somewhere else. Great for foiling other players who are getting close to the star. Boo Repellent allows a player to scare off a boo that tries stealing a coin or a star away from them. After that, it expires. Too bad we have no Bowser or Game Guy spray. Speaking of the little bastard, there's a Game Guy coin item that allows you to summon another player or yourself to be forced to play a Game Guy game, which is just a very sadistic thing to do. There's two incredibly rare items. One is a red chest that works like the plunder chest from Mario Party 2, but it can steal not only one, but it can even steal up to 3 items at once from a player. I've only ever seen a CPU player find this item only once in my entire lifetime playing this game, and it can be hidden within some of the event blocks. The final item is a pesky stopwatch, which can be unlocked through the item quizzes at random. If the stopwatch is used on the last turn, it will force the last 5 turns to repeat itself, forcing the game to drag on for 5 more turns. It's never fun to deal with them whenever someone gets it, especially if you're winning the game and you're just ready for it to wrap up, and then only for a stupid CPU player to use it. Oh, that sucks. The items might be a bit messy in this game, with how broken the minigame quiz prizes can be at times, and with how overflowing the maps are now with item spaces and shops, but overall, the item system in this is a lot more fun than it was in Mario Party 2, where it just felt way too limited and barren in that game, and it opens up a lot more possibilities for just much crazier sabotage, and it makes this one of the more fun board map experiences in Mario Party, but I feel like there's just too much that holds it back, including like some of the annoying happening spaces, and especially the Game Guy spaces. It holds it back from being the best party mode out of the entire trilogy. So onto the board maps. The first board map is Chilly Waters, the first snow and ice themed level in a Mario Party game. The center of the map has a frozen lake which will break if more than one player ends their turn while standing on the ice. There's also these slippery areas on the ice that lead to different paths, and walking over them gives us a 50-50 chance of slipping, which can prematurely end a dice roll. Happening spaces cause Mr. Blizzard to roll a giant snowball, which we can either jump over with the A button at the right time, or we can get chased away with them. Sometimes getting chased away by them might get you closer to a star, so it takes some exploration and memorization to master these shortcuts. It's overall a fun first level with a nice winter theme. Deep Bloober Sea is visually and musically my favorite map in the game, though it does have some very annoying gimmicks. Being the first level under the sea as we try avoiding a pesky shark that forces us to press the A button, which may launch a torpedo at us and send us down the wrong path. There's happening spaces where one of them can cause a mother blooper to place us on the wrong path, or a giant fish that tries sucking us up and spitting us towards another end of the map. So we have to button mash the A button to try swimming away from him, or get eaten and spat out by the fish. However, it can also be exploited for shortcuts to get to certain stars faster, but it depends on what direction the arrow on the fish's head is pointing towards. Spiny Desert has happening spaces that can suck us into one of 2 sets of quicksand, which will spit us out into the other opposing quicksand on the other side of the map. Along with needing to hop over these cacti, getting pricked by the cacti will send us bouncing in pain towards a specific path, which can also be used for shortcuts for certain stars. It has one of the most unique yet annoying gimmicks out of all the maps in this game, where 2 stars appear at once. However, one of them is a mirage that disappears upon approaching. So many of these stars and mirages are placed on divided paths, which can make it frustrating if you went down the wrong path only to lead us to an illusion. Woody Woods is the first forest level in the Mario Party series, themed after Woody from the minigame land in Mario Party 2. With the front half featuring Woody and a bright side to the forest, while the back end features a spookier Woody clone, and it has like a dark and scarier looking forest setting. I really wish I could have loved this level, because I love forest levels in video games. They're some of my favorite visuals, with the pretty plant life and all that, and the tune is quite catchy, but the dang Monty Moles that keep flipping these path signs, they are what ruin this level for me. It happens every turn, and there are way too many signs in a row, not too far apart from each other, so at least Horrorland's day and night gimmick only happened every 3 turns on default. This level drags on the longest without anyone being able to come close to reaching a star due to how constant the sign flipping is. Both Woody and the Scary Woody have these happening spaces where Woody lets you pick one of 2 prizes from his leaves, which can be either coins or a free dice roll, while the evil tree either takes your coins or gives you a reverse dice block. Creepy Caverns is an underground cave level with happening spaces where minecarts can chase us across a track to the opposite end of the map, you can't really reach the other end of the map without those happening spaces or minecart rides, so it's honestly the most forgettable map in the game for me. Finally, Waluigi's Island feels like a villain's lair straight from a spy movie, complete with an island rigged with countdown explosives. The countdown triggers from 5 to 1 with every landing on a happening space near that area. The explosion will cause any players caught in the explosion to lose all of their coins, as the countdown resets itself back to 5. There's a nearby island with a pesky roulette that can lead to one of 4 arrow directions, and we have to time the A button right to try landing on one of the arrows that will lead us to a different island, and it can be really hard to time it right, especially with how fast it can get. And then there's these pesky bridges that can only be opened with happening spaces, and sometimes stars will spawn at places that require those bridges to be opened. This level just feels like a chore more than any other map in this game. Before I get onto the duel maps, let me describe duel mode first. They are smaller boards divided by a red and blue side. Usually they have like a pathway midway through the level that conjoins and kind of helps give shortcuts that lead back to the main goals. So the turn order is decided by a random coin toss represented by the Millennium Star, whether he's facing away or towards the players. And so each player starts off with 10 coins and a predetermined battle partner, which we can either put in front of us for offense or behind us for defense. We can get a second partner down the line, but it requires returning back to our starting goal and starting a roulette that gives us another partner. We start off with 5 heart HP, and the goal of the game is to use our partners to attack our opponents until they have no HP left, or until all 15 turns go by and whoever has the most HP left over wins. But if both players have the same HP by the end, then the winner is settled by a coin toss. To attack our players, we must pass by another player within a dice roll, and we can only attack if a partner is in the offense position. However, some partners are strictly for defense, so even if they are in the offensive position, they won't be able to attack, with Womp being a notable example, for he's meant for defense only. He has like the highest defense out of any character with 4 HP. However, the partners are demanding with their services, and they require us to pay them by each turn, and some of them have really expensive fees, where a character like Toad has the cheapest, where he only charges you 1 coin at a time, where others will expect you to pay them 6 each turn. So to earn coins to keep our partners, we either must land on minigame spaces that trigger 1 out of 10 dual minigames, or we have to land on these blank spaces that create a space with our characters' faces on them. If we land on our own spaces, we will get rewarded with coins, but if an opponent lands on a space with another character's face on it, then they have to pay that other player coins. And then there's this toy toad-looking creature in the center of each map. Every time a player walks by it, it counts down by 1, and once the countdown reaches the 0, it rings a bell, and we're forced to warp in front of that toad toy, and we're forced to play a duel minigame that can triple our prize, so instead of 10 coins, we can get 30 coins for winning that special duel. Overall, the minigame selection is a lot better this time around, but there's only one that I couldn't stand. So far, this sounds and looks like a very fun mode, but there's so much that ruins this mode for me, with the main problem being that it's all luck-based, and we have to get first place in all 6 of these board maps if we want to beat story mode at least once. Some default partners are way too overpowered, which makes some matchups against certain characters a real pain, especially with Donkey Kong, who always has a Womp equipped, which has the highest defense, or Daisy with Sniffit, who is one of the most overpowered and balanced characters, having both 2 HP and 2 attack points. Some of these characters are really frustrating to deal with, especially when a character starts off with these. The prices to keep some of these partners are way too high, especially with how hard it is to even earn coins in this mode. Even winning a bunch of minigames in a row isn't enough. Sniffit demands 6 coins at a time to stay on board, and it's hard to earn more than 10 coins a turn. There's these power-up spaces which can double your party's power and defense, but it will also double the fee that you gotta pay your partners to keep them, which can really cause you to become helpless really fast. Even if you somehow get enough coins to pay off your party, and you keep them powered up, as soon as you reach your goal, it forces them to revert back to their regular state, losing their powered up form, and you're forced to spin a roulette for another partner against your will, even if you're happy with the party you already have. This drawback really sucks. It should have asked us if we want to spin the roulette for another partner, not force us to do it. And it should have asked us if we want to replace the offense or defense after getting our character, not before getting the character. I wish it gave us these options to swap the offense and defense positions around at the beginning of each turn. For there are some examples where a space or some kind of event will cause your characters to flip directions, and that can't be good if you have like a character who's meant for defense put in the offensive position. And so, yeah, it's like I really wish that it gave you an option to swap them around at the start of a turn at least. This really needed more options to help players strategize better, which could have made the game more interesting. So if you manage to get 2 of the same characters on your party, their attack power will be doubled, and it won't double your coins, unlike the power-up spaces. So each character has their own stats and abilities. So Toad is the weakest in both categories of attack and defense, but he has a very lucky ability that can avoid players from having to pay the other players if they land on another player's space. Goomba has very weak defense, just like Toad, but he has double the attack power. Koopa is the opposite of Goomba, with weak attack power but double defense. Womp cannot attack, but he has the highest default defense with 4 HP. Thwomp has good defense and can automatically one-hit KO a rival partner, but he has a very low hit ratio. Boo has a chance of evading attacks. Mr. Blizzard will throw a snowball worth 1 hit damage, which will either hit the opponent or one of the opponent's 2 partners, where most partners cannot attack an opponent directly on, especially if there's offense or defense partners in the way. Chain Chomp has a very weak defense, but is the only player that can actually attack both a player and their partners all at once, worth 1 hit damage. Bob-omb is probably one of the worst characters because right after he attacks, he dies. And he doesn't even do much damage, surprisingly. So Chain Chomp, Sniffit, and Piranha Plants are the most expensive partners, costing about 7 or more coins to operate. Baby Bowser has the lowest hit ratio. He does not have very good offense or defense, and most of his attacks miss. But he has a very rare chance of summoning Bowser, who will deal massive damage, which can lead to one-hit KOs. The odds of summoning Bowser are increased if you manage to get 2 Baby Bowsers on your team at once. But yeah, usually Baby Bowser is the most unreliable partner for me because he misses more than he hits, so he's really not worth having on your team, especially with his weak stats. Sniffit is the most balanced character with 2 HP and 2 attack damage. Occasionally he'll reward you with a few coins that he finds. And finally, there's Piranha Plant, who is the most powerful in offense, but has only 1 HP, which makes him way too easily to get knocked out. He may find and give you a random dice roll, which will give you an extra 1 to 3 on your dice roll. But this is more bad than good, often than not, since there's a lot of times where I'm happy with the space I landed on, but then that stupid extra dice roll appears, and it forces me to move to a space that usually ends up being worse than the one I wanted to land on. It really ruins a lot of good strategies that could have come out. So the 6 board maps in this mode are basically all the same thing. They basically nearly look the same. They might have a slightly different shape, but they have the same aesthetic and music. It's pretty boring. So first is Gate Guy, where we got to pay these gates 5 coins to take shortcuts. Arrowhead, where we can pick a random arrow at an intersection to change our route. Pipe Squeak, where taking a warp pipe leads us to random paths. Blowhard, where crossing a giant fan in the center reverses the positions of offense and defense. Mr. Mover has a conveyor belt which changes from left to right after each turn. And Backtrack is the messiest map, with arrow spaces that can reverse the track's order, forcing us to move reverse within the next turn. So overall, Duel Mode was a very fun novelty, and it makes for a fun and different multiplayer experience, but it relies way too much on dumb luck, with too many backfires that keep dragging the game on or ending it too prematurely. It makes for a terrible completion requirement for a single-player story mode, which just makes this fun idea more annoying, and it has it overstay its welcome. No Mario Party sequel ever brought this experimental mode back, and it would have been neat to try to see them refine this in a future entry with more fun and expansive gameplay with better customization features. It's hard to get excited over getting a partner or coins in this mode when you know some bullcrap will just make you lose them within a matter of seconds. Imagine if they brought this feature back as an amiibo mode where we could power up, instead of partners, our own amiibos, and we could have them battle with other players online or something. What if it played more like a turn-based RPG, where once you encounter another character, you have many options to choose from, which can either be an attack, or some kind of stat-triggered event, or enhancements, or items to help us. This mode just needed more options and strategies, and if it was less restricted and relied less on dumb luck, this could have truly been a really great mode. Now on to the minigames. So in previous episodes, I listed these in alphabetical order, but to try to save time and make this a little more organized, I decided to make the script based off of a list of the minigames I found online, so just to help kind of keep them more categorized. So I'll start off with the 4-player minigames. First off is Treadmill Grill, as we run around trying to punch our opponents off a treadmill while avoiding the lava bubble enemies. It's a very challenging game. Ice Rink Risk, another game involving a lot of moving and dodging, except we're on slippery ice and have to avoid the spinies. We either want to move slowly or keep moving fast without stopping. For letting go of the joystick while moving fast will force our characters to slip and slide, leaving them very open to get hit by the spinies. It is frantic, tough, but fun. Parasol Plummet. We open and close our umbrellas to fall and float from the sky as we try collecting coins during our fall while trying to avoid the hammers. It's one of my favorite minigames in this. Messy Memory, an overwhelming minigame where we take a look at the placement of these items. They get mixed up and we have to try using our memory to put them back to where they were before. Whoever recreates it the most accurately wins. It is a mind-aching chore. It can be cheated though if you create save states or images with the snapshot button. If you keep looking back at those for comparisons, then yeah, you can basically cheat this minigame. Picture Imperfect, a time roulette game where we press the A button to have a roulette land on the correct facial features as we try accurately matching the faces of either Mario, Toad, or Wiggler. It's a fun and hilarious minigame, especially with the hilarious faces you can end up getting. MPIQ, which I guess stands for Mario Party Intelligence Quiz, so it's the first of many trivial minigames in this series. These questions mostly involve easier, more puzzling questions about the board maps, rules, and current rankings or items collected. Curtain Call. NPCs appear on the stage and we're given 3 rounds to correctly answer the positions of random characters, like who was second from the right, for example. Whoever can answer all 3 correctly wins, or it's a draw. If you get one answer wrong, the player is eliminated and they're forced to do a humiliating dance for the rest of the minigame. I do think it's harsh to kick a player out for one wrong answer, but it is still pretty fun to see them dancing for the rest of the minigame. Cheep Cheep Chase is a clone of Skateboard Scamper from the last game, except instead of skateboarding and jumping, we gotta swim and dive. As we bash the A button to swim as fast as we can to try evading a giant hungry Cheep Cheep, and we have to press either B or Z at the right time to dive underwater and avoid these mind bombs. Snowball Summit is not only one of my favorite minigames in not only this game, but possibly the entire Mario Party franchise. It's a snowball fight, but instead of throwing the snow, we have to roll balls of snow until they are big enough to push other players off the summit. So we tap the B button to build up the ball, and we move it with the joystick to make it grow, and we press the A button to release it in the direction our characters are facing. It is a fun last one standing minigame. Toadstool Titan. Each player jumps at blocks until someone finds and claims a mega mushroom. That'll make our character grow as tall as the ceiling, as the giant player has to try ramming the other players out before time runs out, or it's declared a draw. It is a crazy and unpredictable minigame, but it's still a fun challenge. Aces High. This was the most tiring minigame for me. For some reason, it got picked like 2 or 3 times with every board map I chose, so it's the minigame I kept seeing the most. I don't recall ever seeing this minigame pop up as much when I was a kid, but for some reason during my recording for this review, this one popped up non-stop. So it's basically Star Fox 64's multiplayer, but it's slower and not as fun. You could also look at it as basically just Shell Shock from Mario Party 2, but with wings. So we fly around with only 2 HP, with very sluggish controls and bad aiming, terrible shooting controls as we try shooting down the other players till the last one standing wins, or it's a draw. It's not as fun as it should be. Bounce and Trounce. It's basically bumper balls but worse as we try spinning players off a crumbling arena while bouncing on these bouncy ball pogo sticks. Chip Shot Challenge. It's a very unfair and rigged minigame that requires us to either hit a golf ball into a hole or whoever gets their ball closest to the hole wins. There is no good way to judge how far our gauge needs to be in order to approach the hole accurately. Unlike other games like Mario Golf, which gives you a better visual for that, the CPU are overpowered, and at least one of them is programmed to always get a hole-in-one, so it really makes this a very dumb luck minigame that you're less likely to win, unless you get really, really lucky. Mario's Puzzle League. 4 players compete in a match 2 or more puzzle game. The first to reach 100 points wins. It's a simple yet fun minigame, but the CPU are overpowered in this as they just spam combos like crazy, and it takes dumb luck to beat them. For combos can be very tricky to pull off, and with how fast the CPU are, along with how you're usually handed a bunch of colored blocks that you really don't need to build a combo at the time. It's like you might be building a perfect combo where, oh, you just need one more of a certain color to create a chain of events, but then it keeps handing you all these colors that you don't need, which causes the pattern you had perfectly laid out to get blocked off of other blocks, and it really forces you to fall behind. So it's a fun idea for a minigame. It is kind of flawed, but still fun. The beat goes on. Ugh, a pesky Simon clone where players take turns repeating a previous drum beat played by button inputs, as we have to try to keep it going by adding an extra button command at the end of each turn, making it go on even longer. The minigame can be very overwhelming. It's easy to slip up. It can take forever, especially with how the CPU, they're less likely to get eliminated. So sometimes this minigame can go on until it just has no choice but to end because there's no more turns to go off of. It is a very boring minigame. Waterworld. It's a simple yet fun multi-lapped race around an oval-shaped water track. Frigid ridges, a tricky race back and forth across these swervy ice roads as we try delivering 3 blocks of ice to the other end to reach the island on the other side. Awful Tower. Awful indeed. A platforming race to the top with the stiffest and clunkiest controls, making these tiny platforms much harder to reach than they should be. You know it's bad when even the broken CPU can't figure out how to win this one. Pipe Cleaners, a fun game of whack-a-mole where we tilt up or down with the joystick with the combination of A or B to whack these certain baby Bowsers for points. The highest to score wins. It's a really fun take on whack-a-mole. Rockin' Raceway, a slow, boring, and repetitive race as we repeatedly alternate between A and B to move a rocking horse across a derby track while trying not to use up all of our stamina. We can try eating these orange carrots for temporary infinite stamina, but if we collect them at the wrong time, they turn blue and they make our ride very dizzy for a bit. It's pretty boring overall. One thing I notice is, I'd say, unlike previous entries, this one has more misses than hits when it comes to 4-player minigames. There are a few good ones in there though, like Parasol Plummet or Snowball Summit, but then you just got a lot of stinkers like The Beat Goes On, Bounce and Trounce, and Chip Shot Challenge, Messy Memory, it's very divisive mix of minigames, that's for sure. On to 1 vs 3, Coconut Conk. One player rolls around in a barrel to avoid the players on the trees, as the ones on the trees try ground pounding to drop coconuts on the barrel roller. It's challenging, but okay. Spotlight Swim, another challenging one where one player tries swimming and diving to hide and evade from the other 3-player team, as they must shine all 3 of their spotlights on the player together to win. It can be tricky, but it's still kind of fun. Boulder Ball. One player tries bowling over the other 3 with boulders, as the team of 3 try having at least one of their members reach the top in order for their team to win. Crazy Cogs, another tricky one where 3 players are trapped on rotating cogs as they run to evade bullet bills that are heading right towards them, while the single player changes the cog's rotation with a lever to try steering the other players into the bullets. Hide and Seek, one of the worst 1 vs 3 minigames, not only in this but out of any Mario Party game. So 3 players choose a hiding place while 1 player has to find all 3 players within 3 turns, and if they do it, they win. So this minigame really drags on when it comes to hiding against the CPU. For the CPU take forever to pick a hiding spot to expose, as we have to keep watching them slowly pace back and forth over every button to press. It is so annoying. I hate these dumb luck waiting games. They are not fun. River Raiders. One player steers a giant shell boat to collect coins and avoid logs, while trying to steer the skiers from behind away from the coins and towards the logs. It's more fun as the boat driver for the skiing is very limited with mobility, and it leaves us feeling very helpless when it comes to trying to reach coins or dodging logs. It's still an okay minigame. Tidal Toss. A pretty flawed one where 1 player has to ground pound to create waves to stun and knock players off in an arena. So higher ground pounds equal bigger waves that can one hit knock out a player. So this one is somehow easier if you're on the 3-player team. For the CPU, for some reason, are very good at outmaneuvering any ground pound you do. So I usually find myself having better luck when I'm jumping over the waves compared to making the waves. Hand, Line, and Sinker. 1 player has to catch all 3 players dressed as fish with a fishing rod. This one is not that fun, especially if you're the fish. Ridiculous Relay. One player tries winning a race by hang gliding and trying to avoid hard-to-dodge bullet bills and Paragoombas, while the other 3 team members have to take turns to operate different vehicles to reach the end of the relay. Each player has their own unique vehicle and control scheme, with the glider tilting up and down on the joystick, the paddle boat alternating between A and B. The mechanical skeeter bug requires a combination of tilting up or down with the presses of the A or B button, while the motor boat requires mashing the A button. It's a fun minigame, but I have more fun when I'm on the 3-player team. It's real hard for single player to win with how ridiculous some of these enemies are to dodge. Thwomp Pull, a sled race pulled by thwomps, where one player has to press A, B, or Z at the right time to move the correct thwomp forward, while the 3-party team is assigned one button each, as they wait for their cue. It's a fun race, which can lead to very close and even matches. On a 2 vs 2, Eats a Pizza, a fun game that is heavily based on the treasure digging minigame from the first game, as each player has to mash the A button to dig and eat through a bunch of pizza. Whoever eats the most of their half of the pizza wins. Yeah, this one makes me hungry every time. Baby Bowser Broadside. Each team of 2 fires cannons at a Baby Bowser dummy as a tower rotates along with the things that are holding our cannons. They start rotating as well. So whoever racks the most shots is the winning team. It can be pretty tricky with the constant movement and rotation, but it's still pretty fun. Cosmic Coaster. Each team has to slide left or right as we blast through the sky on a rail ride while dodging these signs that come flying right at us. Whoever reaches the end first wins. It is really hard to win this one, for there's so many signs that are hard to dodge and they really slow us down, and along with how uncooperative our CPU can be at times versus the 2 overpowered CPU that we're racing against. It's still a fun challenge, and the music gives me a Sonic the Hedgehog Sega Genesis vibe. Puddle Paddle. Each team works together to try button mashing and sink the paddle boats around to collect the most coins. Simple but fun. Log Jam. Each team races to chop the most logs, as one player places a log down by pressing the matching button on the log, as the axe wielder chops it by pressing the exact same matching button. It's another simple but really fun one. Pump Pumpin' Away. It's basically a less exciting clone of Balloon Burst from Mario Party 2. We alternate between A and B or Z to pump air into a rocket. Whoever's rocket flies the highest is the winner. Not as fun as blowing up a balloon. So, Hyper Hydrants. Whoever extinguishes the most flames wins, as one player pumps water with similar controls to Pump It Away, while those who wield the hose have to aim with the joystick to douse out the flames. It's a fun idea, but being the one who pumps the water is not a fun role. It's more fun to hold the hose. Picking Panic. It's a fun idea wasted by terrible CPU that ruin everything. Each team swings left and right on the opposite sides of the screen as they try picking cherries from a tree and passing it down to the partner to place in a basket. The CPU are very unresponsive and rarely attempt to grab your throws if you're the one picking cherries. Etch and Catch, yet another minigame ruined by terrible CPU partners. Each player tries drawing a circle around a fast-moving toad head. Whoever captures the most toads wins. The CPU seem to want to meander around away from the target or even mimic your movement instead of thinking smart and trying to mirror your movements to perfectly capture the toads. It's a fun idea, but it's just made so frustrating with the slip-up CPU. Slot Sync. Surprisingly, the last duel minigame actually has cooperative CPU, so this feels like a 2 vs 2 reimagining of Mario Party 2's Toad in the Box, as each player needs to get matching characters on the roulette dice to rack up the most points, with Toad being worth the most points, while Baby Bowser subtracts 1 point. So the battle minigames are another really mixed batch, just like in Mario Party 2, with more stinkers than good ones. So Stacked Deck is a long and annoying luck-based game where each player takes turns ground-pounding these cards. If a player gets a Baby Bowser, they are eliminated. Getting a Boo will shuffle the turn order, while Toads will keep players safe to move on to the next round. I really hate this one. 3-Door Monty, a very simple idea ruined by very rigged CPU that are often impossible to even bother competing against. 3 NPCs enter a door and we are asked to correctly answer which NPC is in a certain door. So the fastest to correctly respond wins the game, and very often the CPU are programmed to answer way too ridiculously fast. It's just impossible for a human being to compete that fast, which really ruins this otherwise easy minigame. Merry Go Chomp, another long dumb luck game. It feels like a reskin of Bowser's Big Blast, basically. It's Bowser's Big Blast in disguise. because it's elimination based, and so at least this one goes on a lot quicker than Bowser's Big Blast, but it's still mechanically the same dumb luck game. Slapdown, another simple idea that can be ruined by overpowered CPU that just act way too quickly. So we wait for these flipping tiles to show a flower that matches an image that we are shown, and the first player to slap their hand down on the correct matching image wins. Locked out, a fun idea but with very clunky controls. The players rush and fight over to collect these 3 matching keys in order to advance to the next room. So each room will have 1 less door and 1 less matching key, really making this an elimination-based minigame. I just wish that the grabbing controls were more responsive. I've lost many times because the grabbing controls are ridiculous. You can also punch the keys out of other players, but it's really hard to do because punching causes the characters to come to a complete halt. So it'd be easier if you can run and punch at the same time. All Fired Up is one of my most hated minigames in this duel mode. It's just so broken, as we have to dodge these hard to avoid lava bubbles with unpredictable movements. The CPU are rigged to rarely die in the game, and it feels like they're programmed to last until time runs out. And so I've exploited this minigame with save states, and it still feels like it's rigged to eliminate human players, while the CPU are programmed to just dodge every flame aimlessly. It is so frustrating. Storm Chasers. Each player chases a rain cloud to try watering a piranha plant so it outgrows the other player's plants by the end. It's a bit tricky of how fast the cloud moves, but it's still a pretty fun chase. Eyesore, a fun nod to Mario 64 as each player races to defeat their own Mr. I by running circles around him until he disappears. So while trying to avoid bumping into Mr. I along with dodging the lava bubbles that appear, this and Storm Chasers are arguably the best duel minigames in this game. On to the duel minigames. Vine with Me. One of my favorite duel games as we time the A button right to swing across these vines to reach the finish. Pop Gun Pickoff. A fun arcade shooter as we aim with the joysticks and mash the A button to rapidly shoot the baby Bowsers while trying to avoid the Toads. End of the Line. This is the only duel minigame I absolutely hate. It's just boring and it takes dumb luck to win usually. So each player chooses a left or right path to try reaching the goal, but if we take the wrong turn, our train gets sent back to the beginning, so we have to go through 3 different sets of tunnels, and we have to go through all 3 of them correctly or it warps us back to the start and we gotta start all over. So the first one to reach the end wins. It's an annoying game of both luck and trial and error. You can easily cheat this minigame just by creating save states before every tunnel and reloading if you take a wrong path, just to save time. Baby Bowser Bunkers. A 1 vs 1 reimagining of Whack-A-Plant from the first game, but with baby Bowsers instead. Whoever hops on the most baby Bowsers wins. It's a pretty fun one. Silly Screws, an alternating button mash race as we mash between the A or B buttons depending on what kind of screw that we're standing on, as we run across the screws to reach the next set of screws leading to the goal. So you have to slow down upon getting close to the next screw or goal, for the characters can only hop off of it once they're at a complete stop. If you move too fast, you can easily go past the exit point, and so it's overall pretty fun though. Crowd cover. Players are shown a picture with crowded characters on top of it, as we race to accurately answer which of the 3 images matches the giant image. It's a fun yet pressuring challenge. Tick-tock hop. Each player rides a moving clock hand as we have to jump over the other clock hand until the last one standing wins. It's a pretty fun challenge. Bowser Toss. We mash the A button as fast as we can while tilting the joystick up at the right angle to try tossing Bowser the furthest distance. It's a pretty fun but kind of challenging one. Motor Rooter, a fun, fast-paced race as we can drive up these walls and even on the ceiling as we try driving over these speed boosts and dodge these electric traps. It's a fun challenge for speed junkies. Foul Play. It's a fun idea but very tricky as we try chasing and catching a chicken. It would have been so much easier with camera controls along with the ability to grab without coming to a complete halt every time. If only we could just dive to grab items like we could in Mario 64. The item minigames, these are some of the worst item games in the whole series. So Winner's Wheel, we just spin a prize wheel to claim a prize. Hey Batter Batter, one of the worst item games and one of the worst games of baseball I've ever played in a video game. Trying to find the right time to hit the ball to aim for the right prize we want is ridiculous to figure out, and hitting the ball spot on gives you nothing, as it just causes the ball to slowly be caught by baby Bowser. That's the reward we get for perfectly timing the hit. That is stupid. So thank goodness the Mario baseball games were more fun than this disgraceful minigame. Bobbing balloons. We time the A button at the right time to try popping a balloon to collect a prize, but if we miss, the arrow ricochets back to our balloon, it pops us, and we get nothing. Dory Dip. We ground pound on Dory to have her scoop up a prize with her head while trying to avoid Baby Bowser. Swinging with the Sharks. Another terrible luck-based game that is really hard to win, for there is no gauge to help us with our landings. We jump off a swing to try landing on a barrel with a prize inside. Most often you'll land in the water and get nothing. Yeah, I hate this one. Swing and Swipe. It's probably the easiest out of the item games as we chase Baby Bowsers that have these chests loaded up with items. Finding the item we want is easy, but getting it is the trickier part, for the Bowsers scramble around too much, which can really make it hard to whack the correct one without accidentally whacking the wrong one. Now onto the 3 rare minigames. Stardust Battle is the final battle minigame that we get for completing story mode. We dodge falling stars, wait for them to cool down before they vanish. We try grabbing them and tossing them at the Millennium Star 3 times. It has 3 phases that change whenever the star gets hit. So the second phase has ooze coming out of the ground, slowing down our character's movement, while the third one gives the floor a slippery, reflective surface, making it way too easy to accidentally slip. So this minigame would be less frustrating if we didn't only have 1 HP, and if it didn't force us to have to exit the minigame, go through unskippable dialogue, and restart the minigame with an unskippable cutscene every time. That's what really annoys me about this. It came to a point where I created save states between certain phases to help it go by faster. Also, when you try to grab a star, it leaves you wide open to getting hit by the falling stars that come striking after you. So you can't always wait for them to just stop falling either, for they'll either fade away way too quickly, or the Millennium Star will get back off the ground, making him harder to hit. And so, yeah, it was a neat idea to make a minigame out of a boss fight, but it was just too faulty. Luckily, later boss minigames and future sequels were a lot better. Dizzy Dinghies is unlocked upon collecting all basic minigames in the library. This minigame is a boat race similar to Waterworld, but strictly single player. We can choose between 3 short racetracks along with 3 different boats with different stats. So one boat has balance stats, one focuses on sharper turns, where the other focuses more on speed but has much slippery turning. So it reminds me of RMC Pro but with water boats instead. It's okay. Mario's Puzzle League Pro, an underwhelming reward for getting 1,000 coins in Game Guy's game room. So it's just a single-player version of Mario's Puzzle League, which will save our highest scores. It sounds like a fun reward, but what ruins it for me is the 3-minute time limit, which is not much longer than how long the regular minigame in multiplayer mode is. So this minigame deserved to have the option to have an endless mode to see how long we can last until getting a game over. Luckily, this idea was made into a reality in Mario Party DS. For that game had a really fun feature where we can unlock single-player versions of every puzzle minigame from previous Mario Party entries. And so Mario's Puzzle League offered an endless mode, and so yeah, that was a much better reward than whatever this game tried doing. Finally, the worst minigames out of the entire Mario Party series, Game Guy's games, where winning these rigged games allows us to double or nothing our wagers. So, Game Guy's Magic Box is a 50-50 game of picking one of the correct boxes. If we win once, we get just our wager back, but we have the option to play 2 more times. So winning a second time lets us double our winnings, while winning a third time in a row lets us triple our winnings. So this one can easily be exploited with save states. Game Guy's Sweet Surprise is practically the same as the last one, but more rigged, and it doesn't give us a chance to triple our prize, so we bet on which Chain Chomp we think will eat their cake first. Game Guy's Roulette is probably the worst out of all of these, where it does have the highest amount of coins that you can actually win, but because it's very less likely because you're trying to win on, you know, a roulette wheel where it has more chances of losing than winning. I really don't like this one. You can only win on the ones that you place a bet on, so yeah, it sucks. Finally, there's Game Guy's Lucky 7, a very rigged challenge where the players rarely win. Game Guy challenges us to either land a 7 on a dice roll, or we have to land closest to 7 within 2 dice rolls without going over, but it also has to be a higher number than whatever Game Guy himself rolls, or he's competing against us at the same time. whenever Game Guy rolls over a 7, he'll lose, but that doesn't mean that we won. We still have to either land a 7 or get something close to a 6 or more. You know, we can't go over 7, so we have to get something that's either 7 or under. So I've rarely ever won at this one. It really feels like it's too rigged against us. So the moral of these mini games: gambling sucks. The minigames in Mario Party 3 are a really mixed bunch. I think it has some of the worst 4-player minigames, but it has a surprisingly decent amount of some 1 versus 3 and 2 versus 2 minigames. It arguably has the best dual minigames out of the entire franchise, but so in the end, I think Mario Party 3 is still a pretty decent game, but it has one of the worst story modes in the franchise, with the most lackluster presentation, art style, setting, and barely any unlockables. Story mode should not have to take over 60 hours to 100% complete, especially when said gameplay relies too much on dumb luck, which will force you to have to start over an hour's worth of a level. Dual mode was a fun idea, wasted with terrible restrictions and executions. The 2 additional playable characters were the most notable highlights of this game, along with the introduction of 2 additional item slots, while Game Guy is the greatest sin ever committed to this franchise. I don't think Mario Party 3 is a bad game like others have claimed it to be, but I do agree that it is the weakest of the N64 trilogy. It had potential to be the best with its great expansion of the item system, but some of the board maps had way too pesky of gimmicks, with all their happening spaces, the Game Guide spaces, and some of their other hazards. It really makes some of these board maps more annoying than they should have been. But they still have some great theming and great music. It's just, there's a lot of stuff that really holds it back from being the best board mode out of the entire game. So previously I ranked the Mario Party games I already reviewed out of a scale of 1 to 10, but I decided to not only do that, but this time I decided to make a tier list, which I'll keep changing with every review I make. So it goes from rank S to D, with S being the greatest and D being the worst. And so I don't think any of these games deserve to be an S rank just yet, for they all have a number of flaws that hold them back from being near perfection. So far, Super Mario Party Jamboree is at the top with an A rank, followed by Mario Party 2 and Mario Party 1 not far behind. I unfortunately don't find Mario Party 3 good enough to be in the A rank, but I don't find it terrible enough to be considered a bad game, so I'm just going to have it on the first of the B list, so just right below all the A list games. So I'd probably give Mario Party 3 a 6 out of 10, where I gave the other games an average of 7 or 7.5 out of 10. So this is the lowest scoring one so far, but I can already tell you it is not the worst in the series. Just the worst out of the ones I've reviewed so far. Join me next time when I review the first one on GameCube, Mario Party 4. Thank you so much for watching, see you next time, and have a great day.